Why World War II never actually ended history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. In 1939, the world thought it was safe. They believed the war to end all wars had already happened. They were wrong. Today, the ghosts of the Second World War are waking up. We see the same patterns in our headlines, the same cracks in our global foundations, and the same tremors in the rules-based order. But to understand where we're going in 2026, we have to look back at the moment the old world died, not as a dusty museum exhibit, but as a survival guide. This is the story of the conflict that defined our species, a war that wasn't just won by soldiers, but by an industrial monster that changed the very math of existence. The myth of the clean start. Most people think the war was a simple case of democracy versus fascism. That's the myth. In 1939, it was a brutal, messy scramble for imperial survival. The lines weren't always clear. Did you know the Soviet Union, the force that would eventually break the Nazi back, actually started the war as Hitler's partner? The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact wasn't just a treaty. It was a map to carve up Europe. And while we Westerners look at September 1st, 1939, as the start for millions in China, the war had already been raging for 2 years since the Marco Polo Bridge incident. This wasn't a spark. It was a slow-motion explosion. The pattern back then is the same one we see today. Declining powers using national security as a smokescreen for expansion. The world didn't fall off a cliff. It walked into the abyss, one compromise at a time. The industrial monster. We focus on generals and medals, but the war wasn't won on the battlefield. It was won on the assembly line. This was the birth of total war. Look at those numbers. The Axis had the cool tech, the first jets like the Me-262, the terrifying V-2 rockets, but the Allies had the algorithm of scale. Narrator. The United States and the USSR simply outproduced the enemy's ability to destroy. It's cold math. If you can build 10 tanks for everyone you lose, you win. Period. In the US alone, Willow Run was producing one B-24 Liberator bomber every hour. But while the steel was clashing, a silent war was happening. At Bletchley Park, the first computers were being born to crack the unbreakable Enigma code. World War II was the first data war. Intelligence became more lethal than lead. The Pivot and the Moral Abyss, 1942. The Pivot. This is the year the world held its breath. From the frozen, blood-soaked ruins of Stalingrad to the carrier decks at Midway, the Axis reached their high water mark. But this is also where the war took a dark, permanent turn. This is where the scorched earth policy changed humanity. We stopped fighting armies and started fighting entire populations. The firebombing of Dresden, the siege of Leningrad, where over 1 million civilians starved, the industrial-scale horror of the Holocaust. Moral boundaries didn't just bend, they evaporated. We learned that under enough pressure, civilization is just a thin coat of paint. By the time the atomic shadow fell over Hiroshima, the world realized we hadn't just won a war. We had unlocked a door to our own extinction. The end didn't bring peace. It brought a long shadow. The 2026 connection. So why does this matter now? Because the institutions we built in 1945, the UN, the Bretton Woods system, to prevent a third world war are now fracturing. The rules-based order is being challenged by the same imperial hungers we saw 8 decades ago. Narrator. We are currently living in the epilogue of the Second World War. The borders drawn in 1945, the debts incurred, and the grudges formed are still driving the headlines of 2026. The book of history is starting to feel like a prequel. World War II wasn't a finished event. It was a transformation of what it means to be human in the age of machines. We are at a crossroads. Are we ready for the next shift? Or are we destined to rhyme with the past? The industrial monster is still here. It's just changed its form. If you want to understand the forces shaping our world, you have to understand the war that never truly ended. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments. Do you think we're repeating the mistakes of 1939?